influence for his following as well through all this. But we're going to get to see him in a match with Kurt Angle, which of course Angle had his head shaved bald. I'm sure you remember that, and as we see him coming out now.
Yeah, it was a very convincing wig that he had there.
Very convincing, yeah. Again, I've got to say I've really enjoyed Kurt Angle in all the King of the Rings that I've seen him in thus far, that we've had that we've called his matches on. He's always been pretty decent performer through all these. But I think it also showed me as well, Matt, that just how good he was when you watch him in these roles. And again, even at this point, 2002, he only debuted in 99. This guy was, such a quick learner of the game, and was so good. Love. This is a very interesting combination, isn't it? Like on paper, Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan. When you think about, the sort of ultimate kind of showman, Hulk Hogan. The biggest name that anybody, if you say wrestling, most people would say Hogan and know who he is, against an Olympic gold medalist in Kurt Angle, one of the biggest names that there ever was in that department. It's such a fascinating kind of matchup, isn't it, to have these two different styles.
Yeah, I mean, like, The Rock and Hogan was something, that was one thing, but, The Rock and Angle, these are like almost polar opposites, I would put them on the end of the spectrum. Like, I would say Hogan was never the most accomplished wrestler. I mean, I'm not going to doubt the actual fame of the guy and the popularity and what he brought to the wrestling industry, but his range of moves were limited, I would say, and Angle's was seemingly unlimited.
Yeah, he didn't have quite the Ric Flair currency of being able to still sell the moves and take them well. For instance, that spot that he just done where he he threw him to the ground. How many times do you think he started a match doing that?
Oh yeah, that was his go-to, wasn't it? It's like he had a kind of a routine and he had to fulfill it. Otherwise, maybe Hogan was a bit OCD or something.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting one, this. And again, I forgot that this was on there. I do remember them having a match, but I completely forgot that this was on this one at this point. And of course, Hogan, even at this run, people often forget, Matt, that he had to take time. He took time out when I think it was almost like another month when Lesnar took him out. And then we wouldn't see him until, the Royal Rumble, somewhere like that, where he'd come back to do the match with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 19, and then kind of work it from there. So, he didn't work towards the back end in this run for WWE. Can't remember the whole reasoning behind that. I'm sure there was a reason. I can't remember if it was an injury or there was some sort of dispute between Hogan and WWE at the time.
It's one of those things we keep on saying, though, like, as we watch these King of the Rings, like, we don't remember this match. It's like, almost like we had so much talent at this time, we forgot about the matchups that we'd seen, because it was getting thrown at us so thick and fast, and these days, they're really short on these kind of big matches, where you get, like, one superstar versus the next.
Sure.
So we easily remember them in this day and age. I mean, when we see Goldberg and Brock now, and you think, well, that's a big match, because it hasn't been done in quite some time.
Yeah.
But, back then they were throwing Hogan against everyone, like Hogan Triple H, Hogan Brock, Hogan Angle, and these days, like when when Goldberg makes a return, he's so limited to the matches that he's going to have.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that. I was just reading up on Hogan as to why he did leave in 2002, and apparently it was just literally took 4 months off just to recover an injury. But of course, in 2003 he would leave the WWE for some time, and that was down to apparently allegedly money, and especially with the WrestleMania 19 payday. Apparently he wasn't too happy with it. That's typical.
I mean, I'm sure he wasn't on any small amount of money as it was.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But it was what was your feelings around this time, Matt, when Hogan, was announced that he was coming back with the NWO? Did you get when you saw him against The Rock, was you sort of caught up in the moment as well, where it's like such a nostalgic thing to see him wrestle The Rock, and sort of thinking you'd never see it, and it did happen?
Well, at the time, I was never really a massive Hogan fan. Even at the height of his popularity, I mean, yeah, I know like nearly everybody liked him, and I did like him. It's just I never gravitated to him under that amount of heat that he had and the amount of popularity he had at that time. I was always more kind of a macho man kind of person, because I liked the sort of charisma he had, and his different kind of way of speaking, and his flamboyancy.
Sure.
But when it came to Hogan's secondary run in WWE, when they put him against The Rock and that, The Rock was so like the most popular guy in wrestling at the time, And although I had seen a lot of Hogan when I was little, it wasn't the same as like growing up and getting into the wrestling scene like it was with The Rock back then. I was so much more a fan of The Rock than I was Hogan. I was just so eager to see The Rock win, and The Rock sort of take that spot from Hogan and sort of become bigger than Hogan. And when the NWO turned up with Hogan, like when they sort of came back as the NWO into WWE, I found the Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, I found them to be really cool. I mean, I like that whole thing, and then that's when we first started getting the backstage glimpses and saying that, okay, we know Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and now we're all mates. And I was a huge fan of Triple H and Shawn, and naturally that rubbed off onto them, because when I would turn over to WCW, it would be the majority of the time it was to watch Kevin Nash.
Yeah. Well, this match so far, it's a typical Hogan match, I would say, Matt. That's why I don't think it's like sort of angle all over it, has it, really? But, I think he's working with the best he can, the ability-wise of Hogan. But having a tough time.
Yeah, I mean, this has got a limit Angle's kind of moveset to a degree as well, because he don't really want to work a pace that Hogan isn't really going to keep up with.
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, it's probably worth pointing out as well that Hogan did win the belt, didn't he, Matt? Like, what, a month after WrestleMania? He would beat Triple H, who had just beaten Jericho. And then Hogan was beat by his old nemesis, The Undertaker, for that belt. But again, talent at this time, Matt, it was probably worth having that many title changes because of the name power. But today I don't get that as much. But certainly here, this is a time where I know we talk about the era of mid-carders. This is almost, I would say, the era of main eventers. Certainly name power is definitely here. I'm not doubting the roster is not as good as far as ability goes, but I'm talking about people that are over. I would say this roster is definitely got that going for it.
It's such an interesting time as well, 2002, because like they've got Hogan here, and they're saying like he's a blast from the past. He's of that previous generation. 92, and now we're in 2002. This whole decade, and it's seeing someone like Hogan return is hugely immense. But as we look at it these days, we're in like 2016 and almost 2017. And if we was to look 10 years back at the wrestlers going in 2006. and they were to bring them back today, there would be none of this huge blast from the past on like this previous generation. There's not too much of that about these days.
No, it's I think that's why you do worry for the business. Where it's going to be in the next 10 years. If there's, you can't. It's not like they can bring any of these guys back and everyone's going to be like, yay! It's I don't know, Dean Ambrose or something like. They just haven't done a very convincing job of making them relevant at the moment, and getting them over properly to the point where that's going to be a nostalgic thing. That's what worries me.
the worrying thing is that one of the biggest guys in 2006 that we might even think about would be someone on sort of Batista's level, and then we see Batista come back and we hate him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not a good thing at all there. Well, I thought we was going to see Hogan start hulking up a minute ago, but a second ago, should I say, but he didn't.
Was you ever a fan of that, or did you find that like totally unbelievable?
When I was a kid, I didn't really take too much notice of it. I think I just was used to him doing that. Like, it's okay, he ain't hulked up yet. You know, that kind of feel. So I was never too concerned about him not winning until it had gone past that moment. But I will say, I think he overused it on this run. But when it really worked for me is the match against The Rock. Because when he did that, man, the crowd just blew up. I mean, you talk about save your magic trick. That was it.
Here we go.
Yeah, here it goes. I just think it got too repetitive, and people started doing the whole thing, didn't they? Like, no, where he'd done the finger pointing. Because he'd always catch one of the punches. There we go. Yeah, it just became.
Over now, then.
Yeah, it just became. But when he done it against The Rock, that was perfect. It was absolutely perfect because we hadn't seen it for so long, like at least a decade in WWE, and it had been the NWO, so it really come out of left field. And here we go. Yeah, it's the bald head that we now always. Of course, now we actually prefer him like it now. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not too happy about being exposed, though.
To the point he might actually quit a match.
Oh, and the Hogan is happy to take a count-out victory. The hero he is.
Yeah, he's going to count along with the referee. And then he puts it on himself. That's about right.
Well, it covered up his spot. In fact, Hogan's bald spot might be more embarrassing.
Yeah, now angle with a chair. Well, it looks like poor old Angle was really... oh, no, he hasn't. I thought he was going to have taken a huge job there. But he's not. He's managed to get something out of this. I can imagine Hogan at this point, Matt, is actually in pain legitimately. Probably hates that leg being moved like that.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that. You know, that leg job really did take a toll on him over those years and years of doing it. And this would be a huge, huge win for Angle at this time, wouldn't it? Like getting a submission victory over Hogan.
Yeah,
imagine that. I mean, not too many people hold a submission victory over him.
I mean, Angle's just literally relentless. Not going to give that lock up.
I used to love that style of Kurt Angle, that he was like they used to describe him as a pit bull, didn't they? That he wouldn't release the lock, and it definitely made sense, you know, once you got that ankle lock on. It is a devastating move. And there we go, tap out win as well. God, what?
I was going to say, I didn't recall that at all. Did not recall that at all. So yeah, it's a massive win for Kurt Angle.
And that's how we talk about these days, creating a star. You know, that's what you need. You need the older generation to step aside and say, this is the new kind of legend. And you know, these days, Kurt Angle is a legend.
I suppose before Hogan does disappear off our screens, it's worth pointing out, Matt, that Hogan was involved in our first King of the Ring. You'll remember, against Yokozuna. Where he put him over. So we hadn't seen him a lot for a long time in our retrospective, but he did make a return on the back end, so it just goes to show you how long he was out of it. And also one of our previous King of the Ring winners, Kurt Angle, getting the victory, quite a big victory, cementing how far he would go. I love the way he took the chair shot there. It's like no thought process at all, just went all out. And Hulk Hogan tapping out.
I see he did manage to reaffix his hair before he left.
Yeah, definitely made sure that was right.
I mean, this was a good version of Goldust. Actually, I remember this time now. So this is when he was actually quite funny.
Yeah, we got Booker T and we got Gold Dust. Now, I think it's